in a neighborhood where immaculate lawns and picture-perfect homes lined every street. An undercurrent of tension often lingered just beneath the polished surface. On one particularly bright morning, a striking yellow Lamborghini sat gleaming in a driveway, its paint reflecting the sunlight like a beacon. To its owner, a man known for his quiet confidence and disciplined nature, the car represented far more than luxury. It was a reward for years of hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance, a symbol of the peaceful life he had built for himself. Yet, not everyone in the community viewed it that way. From behind the curtains of a nearby house, a watchful neighbor kept a close eye on the vehicle. Her gaze lingered longer than usual, filled with disapproval. What began as a simple annoyance would soon spiral into something much larger. This is a story about personal boundaries, misplaced entitlement, and the consequences that follow when someone decides they are above the rules they expect everyone else to follow. The calm of the morning did not last. Driven by a sense of outrage that existed largely in her own mind, Karen stormed down the sidewalk and headed directly toward the veteran's driveway. Her footsteps were quick and determined, and before long her voice rang out across the quiet neighborhood. She loudly accused the owner of violating Homeowners Association regulations, even though the Lamborghini was parked perfectly within the boundaries of his own property. The veteran remained remarkably composed. Rather than matching her hostility, he calmly explained that the vehicle was legally parked and fully compliant with every applicable rule. He spoke evenly, hoping to diffuse the situation before it escalated, but reason seemed to have no effect. In fact, the more relaxed he appeared, the more irritated Karen became. Her frustration intensified with every passing second, and her voice grew louder and sharper as she continued arguing. Ignoring every explanation offered to her, she became increasingly agitated. The veteran's calm demeanor, instead of cooling her temper, only seemed to fuel it further. It was as though his refusal to engage emotionally pushed her closer and closer to losing control. Then, without warning, everything changed. In a shocking burst of anger, Karen seized a nearby garden gnome from the edge of a flower bed. Her expression twisted with rage as she marched toward the Lamborghini. Before anyone could fully process what was happening, she swung the heavy ornament with force. The first impact shattered a window. Then came another strike, and another. Glass exploded onto the driveway. The bright yellow body panels were gouged and dented as she continued her destructive rampage. The veteran stood frozen for a moment in disbelief. As the attack continued, the shock faded from his face and was replaced by a cold, determined expression. He made no attempt to physically stop her. Instead, he calmly reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and began recording. Every swing, every shattered piece of glass, every act of vandalism was captured on video. The damage quickly became extensive. Deep scratches scarred the paintwork. Windows lay shattered across the pavement. Metal panels were crushed and dented. Karen continued her outburst, seemingly unaware of how serious her actions were becoming, or the man she had chosen to provoke. Eventually, there was nothing left to smash. The frenzy ended as suddenly as it had begun. An uneasy silence settled over the neighborhood. The only sound was Karen's heavy breathing as she stood amid the wreckage she had created. Not long afterward, flashing red and blue lights appeared at the entrance of the subdivision. Police vehicles rolled into the neighborhood, bringing an end to the confrontation and beginning the next chapter of the ordeal. Karen remained convinced she had done nothing wrong. With a smug expression, she confidently told officers her version of events, certain they would side with her. Meanwhile, the veteran maintained the same calm composure he had shown from the beginning. Without raising his voice or arguing, he simply handed over his phone and showed the officers a recording. The footage spoke for itself. It was a silent yet devastating piece of evidence that documented every second of the destruction. As one detective carefully reviewed the video, something about the veteran caught his attention. Perhaps it was a name he heard from another officer, or maybe a familiar military tattoo visible in the footage. Whatever it was, a subtle shift crossed the detective's face as recognition began to set in. A noticeable change swept through the scene. The atmosphere that had been tense in chaotic moments earlier now carried a different energy. As the detective continued examining the footage, it became increasingly clear that he recognized exactly who the veteran was. Brief glimpses of the man's past seemed to emerge in the minds of those present. A highly decorated military professional whose service record commanded respect wherever it was known. His reputation was not that of an ordinary veteran. For years, stories of his discipline, leadership, and ability to handle difficult situations had followed him. Among those familiar with his background, he was regarded as someone exceptionally capable, a man whose strategic mindset and unwavering determination had earned him admiration and respect. The realization of his true identity slowly spread among the officers gathered at the scene. What had started as a neighborhood dispute was suddenly viewed in an entirely different light. As more details surfaced, the full picture of the veteran's history began to reveal itself. It was a revelation that completely transformed the situation. Karen's confidence evaporated almost instantly when officers informed her that she was being placed under arrest. The reality of felony vandalism charges hit her hard as handcuffs were secured around her wrists. The consequences were immediate. Local news outlets quickly picked up the story, and social media users wasted no time sharing details. Reports highlighted the veteran's distinguished military career, drawing attention to the achievements and commendations he had earned over the years. As the story spread online, public interest grew rapidly. More people learned about the man whose vehicle had been targeted, and discussions about the incident exploded across multiple platforms. Karen watched in disbelief as everything unraveled around her. The smug certainty she had displayed earlier was gone, replaced by shock and fear. With every new article and social media post, she began to understand the magnitude of her mistake. She had assumed she was confronting an ordinary neighbor. Instead, she had provoked someone whose reputation and standing carried far more weight than she had ever imagined. Meanwhile, the veteran remained composed. At one point, he was seen making a phone call, speaking calmly and professionally. Though no one knew exactly what was being discussed, the implication was clear. The legal process was only beginning, and additional consequences could still lie ahead. What Karen had dismissed as a simple act of anger was turning into a far more serious situation. The damage extended well beyond a broken windshield or dented body panels. Standing beside the battered Lamborghini, the veteran surveyed the destruction with remarkable calm. While the vehicle had suffered significant damage, his expression suggested he understood something Karen did not. The car itself could be repaired or replaced. The legal and personal consequences she now faced would be much harder to escape. As the story drew to a close, the contrast between the two individuals became unmistakable. The veteran stood quietly beside the damaged car with a faint, knowing smile crossing his face. In another scene, Karen appeared distraught and overwhelmed, forced to confront both legal troubles and growing public criticism. The weight of her decisions was finally becoming impossible to ignore. In the final moments, the veteran turned and walked away from the wrecked Lamborghini. He left the damaged vehicle behind without looking back, as though recognizing that material possessions could always be replaced. What mattered now was accountability. Justice, in its own way, had been delivered. The entire incident served as a powerful reminder that actions carry consequences, and sometimes those consequences become far greater than anyone expects when they choose to provoke the wrong person.